I'd like to introduce to you Ada to talk about how she empowers people through water.
Well, anyone wants to take these two seats? Yeah, okay. And if anyone wants to move in and don't mind sitting on the carpet or stand on this space here, it might be easier. Okay. Anyone want to move in? I'm not a water expert, so I'm not a scientist. Today is World Water Day. You probably would see a lot of numbers and statistics on the social media or in other forms of channels that would tell you all about, saving water, blah, 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 blah. So I would like to take it a little bit more personal. We are in Hong Kong. We drink water every day. Actually, there's a lot of element of water you either consume directly or indirectly. So I thought it would be an interesting twist to talk about this, and in particular, the relationship between water and plastic. There's a lot of discussion on plastic waste in the past year. But generally, people just think about plastic waste, just think about water, but don't necessarily connect the two, except all these news about plastic in the sea. Which brings me to the first number. So before I dive into what I do, it's there's an illusion that there's a lot of water in the world. There's rain, there's a sea, etc. But 97.5% of the surface water is actually salt water. So we cannot actually consume it directly or use it directly. So I'm not going to go through the rest of the numbers, but what I'm trying you to think about is water is all around us, but the total amount of the world that is usable is actually not that much. And in Hong Kong, we are very privileged that you don't feel that water is not available at all. Who knows how much they pay for water each month? Who remembers their water bill? What's your water bill?
They go from 260 to 350.
Yeah? Anyone else?
$60.
Yeah,
because it's a water bill.
Free.
Yeah, so anyway, I think the point is most people actually don't remember the last time they actually get a water bill, right? Depending on the size of your household, right? It's very tiny number. I mean, our water in Hong Kong is heavily subsidized. And actually commercial water rate is even lower. Okay, so one takeaway is probably think about or find your last water bill and see how much you have paid last time. Another question, how much water do you think you have drank yesterday? How much water you used in your shower yesterday? These are sort of common questions. But most people, whether the amount of water you use, whether it's for cooking, for washing, for cleaning yourselves, for drinking, you hardly can tell how many minutes you spend in the shower or how many minutes you spend in washing your vegetables. So not to mention, what that number, that time translates to the amount of water you use. So my point is, really, we don't know how much we're using in terms of the water every day. But that's only the visible. The clothes that you're wearing, lots of water being used. I'm not going to go through numbers because then it's too overwhelming at 9 o'clock on a Friday. You can easily Google those numbers. But think about the clothing you're wearing, the electricity we're using. There's a lot of water being used, whether it's to cool the machines and whether it's in the production or in the logistics. So it's all around us. It's either visible, non-visible. Okay, so think about that. And that sort of want to go to where I what my work is. I mean, it's such a big topic, water. So rather than talk about something very macro, I'll take it at a very personal story that what I do. So what I do is actually to, my mission of the company is to reduce the use of single-use plastic bottles. Okay, think about bottled water. For people who are probably in their 40s or even 30 something beyond, when you are very young, bottled water doesn't really exist. It's only the invention in recent 40 years. Right now it's all around us. But think about why do we have to consume water out of a bottle? So who drink tap water at home? Filtered? Filtered. Okay. Who buy? Okay, don't worry. I'm not gonna, hit you. But who actually drank bottled water at home? In the office. Why? Convenience. Yeah. Great. Safety. Okay. So who thinks tap water, so you think tap water is not safe in Hong Kong, or you don't know?
I don't know.
Okay, so first demystify tap water in Hong Kong. Tap water in HongOng, it's safe to drink. Okay?
What about pipes?
It depends.
Yeah. So first it's our water supply department in Hong Kong do a great job, so don't worry about the water. Yes, there's the pipe. So the piping issue, so the more famous incident in a few years ago is the lead issue. But filter can actually filter out lead, so you just have to choose the right filter. And for me, I would suggest also using a filter because people don't like the chlorine taste, and actually filter takes out basically the undesirable stuff out. Okay, so even if you don't remember anything, tap water, it's safe in Hong Kong. Get a filter, it's cheaper, more efficient. Buy water, imagine it's not just the cost, but ordering and all the logistics, it's painful. So I don't think it's convenient. So reconsider, just invest in a filter. And it's pretty easy. You just go to Wing On, Sogo, any department store. You can buy online, very easy to fix. And depending on the type of filter, you only have to change it either per year. Again, just check the capacity. So it's because of people's worry about the safety of water. That's why they would rather, I'm not sure, that's why I easily just buy from the convenience store, from supermarkets. And that's why, and then obviously with all the advertising, of bottled water companies, which have really got us into that habit of consuming water out of bottles. Every single day, this is what Hong Kong dispose in terms of single-use plastic bottles. So 5.2 million, one day. That's all beverages, not just water. So these are all beverages. Water is probably 1/3 of that. So what is 5.2 million? So Hong Kong, we've got 7 million people. 5.2 million. 5.2 million, it's literally, if you stack it all up. So ICC is the tallest building in Hong Kong. That's 2,200 of ICC. And that's one day. That's only Hong Kong. Every single city, I shouldn't say every single city, all the major cities in the world today, the increase of single-use plastic bottle consumption is double digits. So if you say New York, London, it's the same. So it's not just Hong Kong is the bad guys. Everyone, they're also consuming a lot. But you can argue Hong Kong is worse because of recycling, but I'm not going to get into that today. So my point is, it's a lot. Okay, so the question is, do we really need to consume that much? So I talk about the tap water myth. The other thing is, especially local Chinese, our grandmother tells us to boil water. So that's another energy consumption aspect. Boiling water is not going to take away the heavy metals in the water. It doesn't make it taste better also. So again, rethink. So the problem I'm trying to solve is people shouldn't be consuming water out of bottled. They should, consider looking at filtered water. In particular, my job is not so much home and offices, but in public space. Okay? When you're moving around the city, you're thirsty, very easy, you go to a convenience store, buy a bottled water. Before you go hiking, rather than bring your own bottle, very easy. At MTL, 7-Eleven, you grab your bottle. That's sort of the habit, the norm. One, it's because it's convenient, obviously. Second, it's even if you're environmentally friendly, you bring your own bottle. Where do you find those water stations? Not that many in the first place. Even if you're lucky to find one in one of the parks, in one of the sports center, what is that image that comes to your mind? Public water fountains. Give me some adjectives.
Rusty.
Rusting.
Bacteria.
Huh? Bacteria. Any other words comes to mind?
Low flow.
Low flow. No, good observation. Yes, that's exactly it. What else? Okay, I'm sure there's an image in your mind, right? Is this to me? Is this silver box leaned over, right? Lucky if it's actually working. If it's working, it might be either low flow rate or maybe it's actually water hit right in your face, right? You look at it, it's like, I'm not a, hygiene freak person. If I'm really thirsty, I'll have a sip. But would you be carrying your bottle and happily refill your whole bottle?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. But if it is the traditional one, imagine maybe good flow, but then the angle, you cannot fill your whole bottle. So the whole user experience, so I know there are a lot of creative people here, the whole user experience is just not great, even if you trust the cleanliness. Okay? Yes, now sometimes we have these newer fountains where it's got sort of that proper faucet that you can refill, blah, blah, blah. So when I look at my problem and trying to solve the plastic bottle problem, is actually I have to work through that it is actually I need people to trust the water. It's easy to use, it's attractive to use. Otherwise people are not going to do that. I mean, people are not going to risk your life by, okay, I want to make sure I don't create plastic waste, but health, it's okay that I drink dirty water. It's not going to be that, right? So for me, the first step is establish that trust of taking the water. So that's why we took the sort of long process of understanding the user experience, what's the pain point, and then redesign water refill stations. Just quickly show you some slides. Okay, these are the photos that I took from sort of Hong Kong public fountains. Don't have to explain too much. Low flow rate, either too low, too strong. Okay. Okay. So this is the water station that we have. Okay, you have to properly put your bottles there. One button press. It's not a product pitch, so I'm not going to get into that. If anyone is interested, we can talk about that later. But what we do is, if you look at these are the old fountains at school. This is in secondary school. So we deliberately sort of put that there so that the students can actually make a choice. So we're not forcing the students to use our fountains. And there's the tuck shop selling water, you still have the bottled water sell here. And see, you know, it's an experiment for us to see how sort of students, user, react to it. So just now I talked about the trust. So what we do is make sure that we tell our user, you know, when we change the filter, when we do the water test, so that transparency. We also make sure that actually at the screen, once you actually finish dispensing, there's the little encouragement on the screen. It tells you, oh, you are the 1 million person saving bottles. It was quite interesting. It was saying, oh, this is like is it a stupid thing to do? But it turns out actually a lot of people are encouraged by these little steps. Because imagine, plastic waste is such a big problem. Water is such a big problem. I cannot fix it. No single person can fix it, right? And when something is not related to you, it's not personal, you don't know how to participate and you kind of give up. So what we're trying to do here is to engage the user so that they feel that they can be part of the movement. So this is a sort of deliberate thing on the screen. We engage people. And also for the venue is actually, they know exactly how much is being consumed, filtered and served. We also track sort of temperature, flow rate, etc., so that we can better maintain. So the whole business model, besides the aesthetic, the design, the look, to give people that confidence, professionalism. Second is from business model perspective, the new thing is we do a leasing model. So we actually lease the station, we own the brand. So very seldom you would see a water station with a brand. So our brand is Well, which has got a triple meaning. And so we want people to have consistent experience. So every time temperature, flow rate, cleanliness is consistent, they see the brand. Whenever they see the station, the brand, they would be confident that they can take the water from there. So now we have launched the product for about 18 months, over 180 stations, and so far we have saved 1.5 million bottles already. Still, in comparison with the daily number, shocking number, it's a small percentage, but hopefully we'll grow the network and we'll continue to save more plastic bottles. And I think more importantly is this engagement. It's about getting people to rethink. So it's not about the water station going to change the world and going to change Hong Kong, no more plastic bottles. That's one thing, but second is really to get people to rethink single use, right? Because everyday life, I think there's already a lot of thing that it's one time. But if you think about how much is being used, energy and water being used to produce that product. So for example, for plastic bottles, actually it takes 3 times, so one bottle of say 500 or 1 liter of bottles, it actually takes 3 liters of water to produce that bottle, right, on top of the water, right, because of the production of the plastic bottles, right? So this is the scene that I hope to see, right? People happily dispensing water, people bring their own bottle to different places when they go around the city. So how does it relate to you? You know, so I'm using my little example of water refill station, how we sort of redesign sort of that user experience, the product, the service offering, that with our little effort, we are actually contributing to reducing sort of energy and water consumption. So in your business, whether it's the clothing, whether it's the leather bags, whether it even your tech company, everything indirectly, there's a lot of consumption of energy and water. Right, so I think there are lots of things that you can think, whether it's your process that you're involved in your product design, development, maintenance, or servicing. There are lots of opportunities really for you to think about it, because we think that, or we are under the illusion there's a lot of water, but actually there is a misdistribution of water across the world. So we are in a lucky spot today, but it's not going to be forever, because our water is relying from the supply in China. We are not making proper use of our reservoirs, or we're underutilizing our reservoirs. We are using salt water to flush our toilet today in Hong Kong. Again, a lot of energy being used to desalinate. There are lots of opportunities. We are not recycling our water in Hong Kong yet. So that's another topic, but if you wish, maybe later on, when we have some discussion, that we can talk about that. I have some involvement in sort of understanding or knowing some of the government policy as well, so anyone interested in particular about Hong Kong. But at a personal level, I think even today, if you sort of rethink whether it's getting your bottled water, whether it's at home, how much you use for cleaning and washing, is there a different way that you can make better use of water without changing your lifestyle? Another thing is when we say have to conserve, environmentally friendly, people think miserable, have to sacrifice. I don't believe so. I think it's a lot of opportunity, business opportunity as well, to actually, in terms of sustainability. Okay, so I will just end, I think, my presentation with, this is actually a quote from Bruce Lee. Okay, so he was talking about Kung Fu as well as, I think, life philosophy as well. And I really love this quote because I think water is a very interesting material element. It's very strong, at the same time very weak, but very versatile. So that's sort of my motto as well. So I hope you get something out of the last 20 minutes. I'm happy to, if there's anyone has got comments, remarks, questions, discussions, happy to do that. We've got some time, Dinah, team. Are we okay with time?
Yeah, I mean, it's open, so if you guys have to go off for work, totally understand. But we're going to open it to Q&A, so does anyone have a question to start out with? Yeah, Ollie.
Well, I can try this. So, first of all, I love your brand. I'm a huge believer. Just yesterday, someone returned my Blue Well bottle to my desk because I've left it in a meeting room and it's become synonymous with my brand. So I carry my little bottle everywhere. I think it strikes me that I think the hardest thing to disrupt or to really address the issue of plastic bottles is it's to disrupt the business model like you're talking about, right? And I feel like until I can dispense water in any 7-Eleven anywhere in Hong Kong, it's going to be really difficult to sort of change that at mass. So I'd love to hear your vision about a little bit more about that business model disruption, right? Is how can you change the sort of, I guess, the interaction with moving from a plastic bottle to a reusable at scale?
Yeah, so I think I'll answer that in two aspects. So one, from a sort of pure commercial angle, I think there are lots of opportunities. I think, yes, one of my channel is actually retail. So, I would love to work with Circle K, 7-Eleven, a convenience store. To them, at least there were some preliminary actually discussions already. They would not oppose to the idea, okay? But like any other business, I think first is to understand what works for them. So what works for them, they were saying, is actually convenience. So in the likes of 7-Eleven and Circle K, people come and go. They don't care so much about the price, but it needs to be quick, right? Convenient. So I think if we can develop a water stations which can ensure sort of that efficiency in terms of dispensing, they even to the extent they were saying that, you know, you can still offer free water. Maybe we get the revenue from selling bottles, right? So we have to figure that out. I'm not so sure because I don't want everyone to buy a reusable every day, right? So whether it's a deposit system, you know, there are other innovations, you know, have already been done by the other startups. So yes, you're right. So until I have got a network, you know, today it's a very small network. Even with the 185, not all of them are in public space, right? In some of the schools, you can't go into a primary school and get your water. So until I have that, it's almost like people would intuitively, oh, where's the next refill, as opposed to finding a convenience store. So physically, economically, I have to make that work. Still some way. But second, I think the most important is people ask me often, who is my competitor? You can say it's Watson's or Bonaqua. I don't think so. I mean, they are and they're not. They even now have their so-called refill station, but it's actually just big cowboy at the back. So they just basically rebrand. My biggest competitor is actually human being. It's behavior. Okay, so it's convenient. Someone mentioned convenience. So it's actually people. So changing behavior is probably the most difficult thing in the world. So it's and it's a very complex thing. So it's a combination. It's so obviously I hope one is definitely that network, whether it's economically or that works. But people also have to feel that this is the right thing to do. Okay, because nothing, you know, until someday there's some magic, oh, I need my bottle, and then it appear. The carrying a bottle, carrying a container, it's painful. You know, you've got guys without the rucksack without carrying a bottle. But then my argument is also, you have people carrying a Starbucks cup. It's inconvenient. But why people carry a cup, walk along and as if they look cool? Okay, so that's why the branding comes in. Okay, people need to feel that one day when it's in a meeting room, when it's like carrying a disposable, it's like, what's wrong with you? You have to almost get to that point, okay? It's a long journey. So the branding, the marketing, the communication is a huge element to push that. So just like smoking, today, I mean, at one time, smoking is cool. Or people think it looks cool carrying a cigarette. But then now it's like, right? So how do you get to the point that people feel it's actually uncool to carry or do it or use anything single use? So I think it's a collective thing. We're doing our part. So we spend a lot of time at events and schools, education, awareness, and also the branding and all that sort of combination of things is towards that direction. Yeah.
There is actually an app for free that says water for free. That have I think hundreds, maybe thousands of locations in Hong Kong, including some cafes. Okay, that you can walk in without buying anything and you get free water. And I encourage you to download that app. I'm not associated with it.
Yeah, I mean, actually a lot of Happy 2, Maxime, Super Sandwiches these days, they actually have water stations now. The only problem is it's not very high. So if you've got a bottle, it's a bit challenging, but you can get water. But obviously Hong Kong people is very innovative. They pour it in a cup and then the cup on the bottles. So yes, and I think the more people do it, right? Actually, I'm happy about this room. So when we actually do our campaign, when we do because it's all about the network, right? And even now, when we talk about, people ask me, what do you think of the new Watson's refill station? So great, because the more people mention and talk about and think about refill, it's actually better for my business. Or I shouldn't say my business, for this movement, right? It's not a bad step. Yeah, but to me, for those brands, I think this new product is not going to reduce the amount of single-use bottles. It's just going to increase the overall market share. So this is an additional product as opposed to reducing single-use. But anyhow, I think the more people talk about refill, the better.
Any last question?
Should I try that? Because I kind of want to go back to that dilemma with water filters. So a few months ago, obviously with the roommates and just a lot of people were like, well, we can't buy plastic bottles anymore. We also don't even know if it's recycled and where our stuff goes in Hong Kong, because I think there's a lot of misconception around, oh, well, I'll just throw it and people will sort it and then everything gets recycled. So there's that whole problem of education. So we bought the filter and we were like super happy, and then we go around and we're like, hey, we can actually drink our water now, everything's great. And I'm sure a lot of people in the room have that one friend who has an answer for everything. And so I go over to my friend's house, we have dinner, and I'm like, well, I just bought this new filter, it works great, I think it's Philips, so you can trust the brand. And so we start drinking from it, and she goes, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, we're drinking from our filtered water. And she goes, well, you shouldn't do that. And so we're like, oh, shit, well, why? And then so she starts telling me about this device that she has that actually tracks the quality of the water. And then she has a filter herself, and then so when she ran it through her device, it showed, I think on a scale from like very green, which is very beautiful, to you're dying. It kind of shows you that scale, and it turns out her filtered water wasn't of the highest quality. So I think because a lot of us respond to data, and we want to be empowered to know whether our water really is safe or not. I think it's one thing, for a lot of people, we've lost trust. So if someone tells us, oh, you're drinking safe water, and then you'll go over to someone and like, oh, you can drink that water because it's safe. But then they might ask, well, how do you know it's safe? And then you'll just say, well, because it told me it's safe, right? Because I'm just thinking, how do you guys actually track the water? Because when we saw on your water dispensers, it says, oh, water's safe. So if I go to someone and I'm like, oh, you can drink that water because it's safe, and they're like, well, how do you know? And I'll say, well, the machine told me it's safe, right? So is there a way, or even us personally at home, is there a way for us to track the actual quality of our water so that we actually know that it's safe? Because it's one thing to tell us, oh, you're drinking safe water, but how can we individually, if I don't even know if that exists, but how can we individually make sure that we're empowered to know that our water really is safe through that filter?
Thank you for your question. I have to rethink how to communicate the safe. Maybe I should or should not use the word safe. Because you remind me, I think safe and also water quality, what's the definition? Where you're talking about bacteria, you're talking about minerals in the water, so people might have different interpretation of what safe and water quality is. So going back to that personal stories, again, what is that device and what does it test, right? There's a lot of, but I totally agree with you. I think our approach is trying to be data-based, evidence-based. So in our case, we actually follow the Water Supply Department, which is the WHO standard. We actually, before we install, we do a water test to make sure the incoming water quality, and then we choose the right filter in that space. So, and then regularly we do water tests. So that's according to the Water Supply Department standard. But that standard might vary from different people, right? Because, I mean, earlier on someone asked about this alkaline water, and then I think there's some Japanese water called Diamond brand sort of water, which that filter probably cost you $10,000, so they're all those kinds. So it's a very personal choice, so I think it depends on what you're looking for in your in your water, because some people even think about quality as in the flavor, the amount of minerals, additives, etc. as well. So it's your own definition. So for us, we use sort of just that basic sort of safety line based on the bureau. Going back to your question, today, from my research, from my knowledge, there's no device that can instantly tell you about the water quality. Okay, you have to go to a lab to do that. So if people or some companies, they tell you that instantly from this reading, it's good water, you better ask exactly what they're testing. There's some filtering companies bring sort of like a tube, and put it in the water and show you, a reading and tell you this is good. But as far as I know, that sort of instant is really just testing the amount of salt content in the water, and that's an indicator of the amount of minerals, and that's generally just for testing a certain type of water filter, which is called, some of you may be familiar, reverse osmosis, which takes everything out of the water. So, I don't want to overcomplicate this, but if anyone interested in details, we can have a chat afterwards. So today, as far as I know, even you go to the highest, maybe you go to the military, NASA. Otherwise, I don't think there is any device in a commercial world that can instantly tell you whether water is good or not. So I guess as a consumer, you should ask that question of what you're testing, whether it's bacteria or heavy metals. Does that answer your question?
Sure, I can tell my friend that.
So yes, I probably oversimplifying my original comment about Hong Kong water is safe to drink. So I was referring to basically the WHO standard. Unless your family there is particular sort of medical complication, basic filter generally works. Okay, thank you.